Welcome to Broda Journal Series. The FREEZER Series continues. When democracy has only one candidate, an allegory on political manipulation, electoral weakness, and the rise of dictatorship. The master of the house was impeached on 3 serious counts by the stakeholders of the house. First, his poor decision had contributed to the death of the maid following the incident involving the broken bottle. Second, he has failed to investigate who placed the broken bottle inside the freezer. And third, without consulting the stakeholders, he had ordered the disposal of food and provisions that has been stored up in the freezer for years. The stakeholder believed that these decisions demonstrated a dangerous disregard for accountability, consultation, and the welfare of the people. But what they did not understand was that ignoring the spade because of the rock could eventually damage the cutlass. The magnificent house had survived generations, but he had no guarantee that its future would resemble its past. After all, everything that begins will eventually face an ending, and so the reign of the master came to an end. Following the impeachment, the city passed a new law. From that moment onward, members of the house, both families and workers, could contest for the position of the master. The new law excited both the elderly and the younger members of the house. For the first time, many believed that the future of the house could be determined by merit rather than inheritance of familiarity. But there was one problem. The great freezer was not merely damaged because of age. It had been damaged by poor management. It needed someone who understood how to repair it, manage it, protect it, and ensure that it continued serving everyone. The people were therefore looking for more than a mere keeper of the keys. They wanted competence, integrity, accountability, performance, and fidelity. They wanted a leader who could manage the freezer, not merely possess the key. The great freezer had 2 major sections. The cooler parts. The cooler stored everything that came from the farm: yams, beans, vegetables, cocoa, palm oil, and the proceeds from all of them. These provisions were meant to sustain everyone in the house every day. The deep freeze was different. It stored everything that came from the hunt and the earth: bush meat, game, oil, gold, minerals, and other resources dug from beneath the ground. The wealth generated from these resources was not meant merely for today's consumption. It was the wealth meant for children yet unborn. Together, the cooler and the deep freeze represented the wealth of the house, and the rule governing the house was simple. The master must be elected by the people, and traditionally, the master had to emerge from the city and be a child of the city. For generations, the arrangement appeared to work. The freezer remained functional, the house prospered, and nobody imagined that one day the very process of choosing the person who controlled the freezer would become the greatest threat to the house. Now on the election day, the day finally arrived. It was the first election after the previous master had been impeached. 5 candidates stood before the people. The elder scrutinized them carefully. The farmer, he was honest. He understood agriculture and loved the farm. But he was weak. He had little knowledge of administration and lacked the strength required to manage the entire house. The hunter, he was strong, very strong, but he was greedy. He believed that almost every problem could be solved through force. He was more interested in controlling the house than serving it. The trader, he was intelligent and politically clever, but he had one weakness. He loved borrowing. His business was heavily dependent on loans, and he often sacrificed the long-term health of the enterprise for immediate gains. The elder civil servant, he was experienced, he was wise, he understood the systems of the house, but age had weakened him. He was tired, and many wondered whether he still possessed the energy required to repair the broken freezer. The stranger, capable, brilliant, energetic, and especially loved by the youths. There was only one problem. He was not originally from the city. He had been accepted into the house because he had married a woman from the family. The youths believed that his competence was more important than his place of birth. The stranger will fix the freezer, the youth shouted. But the elders responded, "The law is the law. If we break it today because it is convenient, what will stop us from breaking it tomorrow because corruption demands it?" The debate became fierce. Eventually, the voices of the youth prevailed. The stranger was allowed to contest, but the decisions had already created a dangerous precedent. When a society begins bending its rules for a particular person, it must be prepared to live with the consequences of that exception. Then something strange happened. The hunter began moving from one candidate to the other. He did not campaign with ideas. He campaigned with fear. First, he visited the trader. The trader owed him money. The hunter demanded repayment. "If you cannot pay me," he warned, "withdraw from this election." The trader became afraid, and at the last moment, he withdrew from the race. Then the hunter visited the elder civil servant. He reminded the old man of the meat he had purchased from him but had never paid for. "Withdraw from this election," the hunter demanded, "or I will demand what you owe me right now." The elder civil servant became frightened and he withdrew. Then the hunter went to the farmer. "You borrowed a piece of land from me," he reminded him. "Return it or leave this election." The farmer knew that losing the land would destroy his source of income, so he bowed out. One by one, the candidates disappeared, not because they were defeated by ideas, not because the people rejected them, but because fear had been weaponized against them. Now the last man standing, only the stranger remained. The hunter searched for something he could use against him, but there was nothing. The stranger owed him no money. He had borrowed no land. He had taken no meat. There was nothing obvious that could force him out of the election. Then the hunter found another weapon, secrets. He approached the stranger. "I know the secrets of your wife," he said. "If you refuse to withdraw from this election, I will expose them publicly." The stranger looked at him calmly. "My wife has already told me everything," he replied. "And if you exposed her secrets, I will expose more of yours." The hunter was furious. For the first time, intimidation had failed. His threats had failed. His blackmail had failed either. So he turned to something far more dangerous: violence. The hunter ordered his men to eliminate the stranger. The stranger was eventually captured by the men sent to kill him. But faith intervened. One of the men recognized him years earlier. The stranger had helped him when he was in need. Instead of killing the stranger, the man decided to repay the debt. He secretly hid him away. "Stay here until the election is over," he told him. The stranger agreed, and so the man who was supposed to contest for leadership disappeared from the political battlefield. Not because he lost, not because the people rejected him, but because he had been removed through fear and violence. Election day arrived. The people came out to vote, but there was barely a contest left. The trader was gone. The head of civil servant was gone. The farmer was gone too. The stranger was nowhere to be found. Only one man remained, the hunter. And so the hunter won, not because he defeated 4 opponents in a fair contest, but because 4 opponents had been forced out of the race. The people were unhappy. They protested, they complained, they questioned the process, but eventually they accepted the results. The hunter became the new master of the house, and the man who had fought his way into his position now held the keys to the great freezer. My take on this episode: there are some leaders a society must avoid by every lawful and peaceful means available. Avoid leaders whose ambition is greater than their humanity. Avoid leaders who believe that violence is a legitimate tool of political competition. Avoid leaders who place personal acquisitions above public interest. And above all, beware of anyone willing to go to extraordinary lengths merely to occupy an office that belongs to the people. The stakeholders should never have allowed an election to continue when it had effectively become an unopposed contest created by intimidation and coercion, though unknown to them. Because democracy is not simply the act of voting. Democracy is the freedom to choose. When fear eliminates the alternatives, the ballot may still exist, but the choice has already disappeared. A leader who becomes the only candidate because everyone else has been threatened, bought, intimidated, blackmailed, or eliminated has not truly won competitive election. He has merely inherited the remains of a competition. And when leaders become less about competition and more about elimination, the office itself loses its value. Every position of leadership carries a responsibility proportionate to its importance. The greater the office, the greater the requirement for competence, integrity, accountability, and character. Those who lead us must not merely emerge as winners, they must emerge as credible winners. Because a person can win an election and still lose the confidence of his people. A person can occupy an office and still lack the character required to lead it. And a person can possess the key to the freezer without knowing how to preserve what is inside of it. The hunter now holds the keys, but can he manage the freezer? Can a man who used fear to obtain power use wisdom to preserve it? Can the man who destroyed competition protect the wealth of the entire house? And with the very problem that caused the previous master to be impeached, return in an even more dangerous form? The people had removed one master because they feared the destruction of their future. But what if they had unknowingly opened the door for something worse? That question will be answered in the next episode. I remain my humble self, whatever you call me. Thank you for watching the Freezer series. See you next Thursday, and bye for now.